And currently, we are under a emergency contract with Waste Management. Okay, I'm sure some of you all remember our trash not getting picked up a couple of months ago. And that was because Red River had gone bankrupt and Waste Management took over. Okay, so now that the budget has been passed and the real negotiations are taking place, we really wanted to make sure you all knew what was going on so we can take actions on making sure that expanding this landfill is not an option, okay? I've worked with Councilman Hall, Mr. Dan Lane for a couple of years with the Solid Waste Management Board. And the Solid Waste Management Board, Regional Board, is over all the trash in Nashville, in this area. And with and so passing the Jackson Law was one of the first things that was essential for us to do to have any control on the expansion of the waste plant, of the waste site. What I would like to do is to bring up Mr. Dan Lane to tell you all more about how that all works, because he's actually served on the solid waste ban. Sure.
Okay, what I'm going to say may seem a little odd, but I'm trying to figure out, and a lot of the people in the district are trying to figure out whose meeting is this actually, because I'm looking and I'm seeing our council representative Hall over there, which he is elected to represent the community. So I'm trying to figure out, why is he not hosting the meeting, and why is it not on Metro's website that there was a meeting, and why was it not really publicized until a few days before the meeting, and why it was done on a holiday weekend when the majority of the districts probably entertaining family are out of town. I personally find it a little odd. It seems unprofessional, and I appreciate the information that may be given, but it does seem unprofessional, of which we need to get into a level of being professional in this district. And I personally did not sign the sign-in sheet, of which I always sign sign-in sheets, because I did not know who was actually hosting the meeting. And if it's not being held by an elected official, you know what I'm thinking.
Okay, I can appreciate your concern, and I can't speak on, what the councilman is going to do or not do. As a concerned citizen and been working in the community, I know half of you all in here because I've been working in the community. I took it on myself, like you've taken it on yourself, to be very active here, but being very active here, and I'm being very active, and this is how I'm participating, and this is what I'm doing. No. Well, on the flyer, the ask is of him. So that's why I wanted to make sure he was here, because we need him to push the resolution taking the expansion of the waste management off, okay? But I want to let Mr. Lane come up and just give a little bit more history on it, because like I said, he was on the solid waste board, and he's a well-respected member of this community.
Thank you. Let me just first say that I learned about the meeting yesterday, and then I didn't know that I would be called on to just give a little history of my knowledge of the Solid Waste Regional Board. But very briefly, I was appointed and joined the Solid Waste Regional Board in 1999. And that was a few years, I can't remember exactly, but the state legislature passed a law creating Solid Waste Regional Board throughout the state. And the Solid Waste Regional Board then had the authority to meet in their particular region and approve or not approve any application in terms of what will happen with landfill, whether they would be, you could adopt one, extend it, close it, and so forth. Now, as I said, so from 99, and I was on the board up until 2017. And after that, I figured it was time to relax. Actually, just a little history. In 2010, the Waste Management made application to expand the service, Southern Service landfill, which is what they call a classification D, which is supposed to only accept construction and demolition waste. There's been question at that time and after that whether there's been other type of waste that have been they have accepted there. Another issue was other owners of construction and demolition landfill also did recycling. Waste Management refused to do any recycling up until I think maybe, after the Jackson Law was passed, and I can't remember exactly when that was, but you can tell me. So when we, as the Solid Waste Regional Board, rejected their application for extension in 2010, at that time they was projecting that the landfill itself would be at capacity in 2017. Waste Management appealed the board decision in 2010 and took it to, I think it was Jones Session Court. At that time, we didn't have the Jackson Law. Also at that time, the city itself didn't provide any legal counsel. And so the only legal representation that the community had at that time was a group called Bardo Beautiful, had a private attorney who had expressed some concern about landfills in the state. So basically, when they went to court without any, the Solid Waste Regional Board and the city itself went to court without any legal representation. So the court appealed the Solid Waste Regional Board decision, so they got the extension from that time to go from 2010 up to 2017. Now, later on, they recently, they have also asked to extend and expand the landfill again. This time, now the solid in between 2010 and 2017, I think it may have been 2015 when the Jackson Law was passed, but what the Jackson Law did was give the Metro Council the authority, in addition to the Solid Waste Regional Board, any expansion of landfill had to go before the council so that the council could vote on it. Prior to that, before we had the Jackson Law, then the council, the Metro Council did not have any authority to make a decision on whether they support the expansion or deny the expansion. So a group of us went to council and got the council to adopt the Jackson Law. And once it was adopted, Waste Management said they was grandfathered in and it didn't apply. But later on, I think the city at that time did provide some legal counsel, and it wound up, and the conclusion was, yes, it did apply to Davidson County, and it was not grandfathered in. So on the latest attempt they requested an expansion of the landfill, and the Solid Waste Regional Board denied the expansion. One of the reasons they denied it is they had adopted what they call no landfill policy. and therefore to let them expand it, it would be against the policy of the Solid Waste Regional Board. And that was a legal reason why I think the court itself decided that after the Solid Waste Regional Board denied the expansion, I think this was in 21, when they came back to asking for the expansion. Solid Waste Regional Board said no. We knew then at that point they would appeal it back to the court. They did appeal it back to the court. At this time, Metro Nashville did provide legal counsel. And I think based on the adopted policy of the Solid Waste Regional Board that they wanted their plan and policies was to get to no landfill policy. And the legal authority argued that to expand it was against the city policy, which the council had approved also. Therefore, the court itself agreed and denied their attempt to overrule the policies of the Solid Waste Regional Board and Metro Council, because at this point with the Jackson Law, it was also not only the Solid Waste Regional Board, but the Metro Council also. So now, at this point, they are going to appeal, I think, from the General Session Court to the next court level, and I think this is the concern that the community have at this time. So now, just a little bit, I don't know, but Waste Management have had, well, our garbage and everything in the city for the past, from 2010 on, have been household garbage going to Murfreesboro. And they are at the point they don't want it anymore, and because they was also receiving the garbage from several other counties. And their board recently, the last 2 or 3 months I've read, have rejected any expansion of that. So we are faced really at a point at this point in time, if there's no, if Murfreesboro don't stop taking our trash, what are we going to do with it? And that's a question that I think we need to be concerned about, because we just hired Waste Management to come in and start picking up regular garbage, because the company who had the contract to pick up regular garbage was not picking it up on time, and also had filed for bankruptcy. And for some reason, because they'd filed for bankruptcy, we could not get rid of them. So I think we did a temporary contract with Waste Management to fill in. But knowing them, they're probably going to want to stay. And you got that potential that when Murfreesboro said, we don't want your garbage anymore, and I think that's coming down in a few months, then what are we going to do with our garbage?
Thank you, Ms. Lang. Exactly. They have, well, again, we've worked to get Jackson Law. The councilman, before he was a councilman, was down there testifying, pushing to get Jackson Law. And he's also, since then, been working with the Murfreesboro dump and their fight to close. And I want him to give a little bit background on why we're doing this now and why it's so important.
So real quick to follow up where Mr. Lane left off, Murfreesboro and Nashville both. Murfreesboro, 14 counties, in addition to Davidson County, send their household trash to Murfreesboro. They've been tracking with us along the same line. So both landfills are supposed to close, or were already deemed at capacity, or to be at capacity in 17, 18. Then when COVID hit, all the data came back that says we were producing 4 times the amount of trash that we had been, while construction not slowing at all. And so both sites have been going through the same process in both counties. And so we've got to figure out as a city where our household trash is going to go over the next year and a half, simultaneous to figuring out where the construction debris is going to go over the next year and a half. And that is a huge problem that I don't think the city's having enough of a conversation about. In addition to that, as Mr. Lane was saying, as we went through that process, some of the things that came out was in that 30-year plan that the Solid Waste Regional Board put out, it was a 30-year plan to zero waste. One of the first things that they put in that plan, or one of the pillars of that plan, is nowhere are they allowing for more landfills to be created. And so in that push towards zero waste, you've got to come up technology-wise, science-wise, with alternatives of what we're going to do with our waste, both construction and household. And so that's the situation we're in and what we're looking at. But more importantly, it's the timeline that we're looking at it, because the city's got a history of waiting to the last second and then doing something in an emergency scenario. Just like with, as Mr. Lane mentioned, if you've noticed, who's picking up your household trash right now? It's Waste Management. All right, so the same time we were in a battle in court about the landfill with Waste Management, they were given half of the trash contracts in an emergency situation. And he's absolutely right. If you think they're not going to want the entire contract as it's being negotiated for a year from now when it runs out, then we're being delusional. Absolutely, I'm sure they want it all. And it's probably one of the main reasons why you've not heard anyone speak about it, us winning that court case, simply because simultaneous to all that taking place, they were having a separate conversation, and that's how they were already given those trash contracts. I've even heard from companies, other places that were interested in the RFP, that they were told a deal had already been worked out and not even to bid on it. So we've got still some work to do. One of the phrases I've been hearing, and that I guess we've kind of adopted toward this, is you won the battle, don't lose the war. So we're still at the beginning of this, or right in the middle of this. We've still got some steps we've got to figure out and take to ensure that in this next chapter, we figure out where this stuff is going to go, and to make sure that yet and still we're not bearing the burden of that.
And again, what can we do? What's next? And I'll get to you all's questions in just a second, but what's next? What can we do? And what we're asking on the pass out was that next council meeting, which is not the 18th, at the 18th, the second meeting of this month, we want to meet at the council and ask for a resolution of the council supporting us, not that they will not approve any expansion of the landfill. Again, this landfill has to close because it's at capacity. And they make $120,000 a day dumping in Bordeaux. That's $600,000 profit a week. What, $30 million a year? They are not gonna bail us out, because we have nobody to pick up our trash if they decide not to pick up our trash. We have no place to put it. Then one thing, and I see Representative Dixie here as well. Also, in addition to them filling up faster because we stayed at home, so our household waste quadrupled because everybody was at home. So Murfreesboro, not only are we growing so fast and that dump is filling up, we stayed at home for 2 years and the household waste quadrupled. So they now went to the state, and the old state law said they don't have to take any of the 14 counties' trash. So at the end of this year, they're not even taking our trash. And they have not talked about that. That's, again, I'm like, that was a monumental, former State Senator Harper made her political career closing a dump. And you know Cooper would have loved to have said that he was the one behind getting Nashville to represent the Solid Waste Board to win this case to close. And why did he not say that? I heard nobody talk about us winning that case because they are still in negotiation. Waste Management is not going to let $30 million go, okay? So what we want to make sure we do, because we have passed the Jackson Law, we wanted to make sure the council will not expand the waste management, even though they're still in negotiation with them. And so that is what, you verify the date, that is the next meeting, Tuesday? But that's the ask. We're gonna get, we want the council, we want to ask Councilman Hall to have a resolution put forth on the second meeting in in July, for the council not to approve expanding waste management, okay? All right, any question? Yes, sir, in the back. No, because we're on Facebook, I'm gonna.
So, do we already have an idea, and this is, I guess, for you, Councilman Hall, do we already have an idea of language for the draft, and do we already have targeted sponsors, or do we already have other council persons that we know will co-sign to go ahead and get us moving on that sooner rather than later? That's one. And then two, how should we look at this legislation with respect to any procurement or current contract with waste management?
That's a good question.
So from a language standpoint, and with something that's done commonly, is you'll introduce a piece of legislation or resolution and you'll ask that everyone voting in the affirmative be added to it as a co-sponsor. So there are specific council members who support this community and would sign on as co-sponsors immediately, but then everyone that would vote for it would automatically be added and go on the record as someone that was a co-sponsor and supported it. And I think that was his initial goal in asking about the resolution, was to have on the record the whole body, yes or no, do you support this community? And this is how we want this to be framed. Because you've heard me say for an extended period of time, guys, like, this is the beginning. You're still gonna have people continuing to try to do this, whether it's this company or a different one. And so specifically, we wanna get on the record, I guess, that whole body in their position on that. In terms of procurement, specifically, that resolution and our participation sends a signal to the administration to say, whatever negotiations you have been having or are currently having, you're gonna have to take this into consideration. So that's also the part where the being vigilant, being active on this topic really matters. We have to show a presence at that council meeting when that resolution is there, because you want them to know that, hey, you're having this conversation, I get it. We gotta figure out what we're gonna do. But to kind of frame the level of seriousness, when Murfreesboro closes, Murfreesboro takes 15 counties, Davidson County and 14 others. To say someone else is gonna just say, okay, well, we'll do a landfill over here. Well, you can't do anymore. Well, who's gonna take it? 14 other counties have to figure out where they're gonna send their stuff. And simultaneous, the same thing when it comes to the construction debris here. So that's why we have to be very specific and aggressive in terms of structuring that conversation and making sure that throughout that process of negotiating this next trash contract for the entire city, that they're taking that into consideration. One of the things I've done in the interim, and Mr. Lane will tell you this, for years being on Solid Waste Board, they chastised Metro government quite a bit, saying we weren't aggressive, specifically at that one solid waste meeting when they ruled no the last time, that we weren't aggressive enough as a city in implementing the solid waste plan and doing things that would take us to that zero waste mark. And so in that interim, one of the things that I did was create that solid waste commission and take the 30-year plan at the state and try to get it to be a 10-year plan for Metro. And so we've been aggressively approaching. I've got resolutions for studies to show, hey, we're not the only people that can do this or handle this. It needs to go other places. Conversations around who and where recycling would go. All of those things have to be addressed right now, including how you turn some of that stuff into energy. How do you put some things into some sites to help break down the household waste faster? What can the mitigation piece be? So let's say the C&D landfill closes tomorrow. Well, they're not obligated to clean that site up, ever. So what would we do to mitigate and reclaim that land and over what period of time? Because it would make a great park or something else. So those are the three things the language for the resolution and why, the procurement part where that resolution and our conversations affect the negotiation of the next trash contract, and also pushing forward on what the next 10 years, next 20 years, next 30 years should be specifically. Because there are incentives and different things in place. Metro 30% or whatever, you know, we're really pushing towards sustainability. So there's some conversations headed in the right direction, but you just have to make sure once and for all, it's not just us saying, well, it shouldn't be us, somebody else should take the burden on. We're gonna show who else and where else things can go, and make so when they consider these conversations, it's, you've got options that don't include us or include us anywhere in the near future, because you've got to fix what's broken first. I can do it this week. In theory, I could do a late file and try to get it on, but the agenda's really heavy post-budget because a lot of stuff got delayed until we got past that conversation to circle back around. That's why when he mentioned this a few days ago, I immediately said the second meeting in July. Already reached out to Metro Legal, so they're putting some language together, and then we'll just get that out to see if that's what, you know, everybody's okay with before, and it gives us time to get people lined up to show up at that meeting. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll double check. I don't think that's public speaking week. I'll double check, but I don't think it is. But that's why that process that way in those 3 steps.
And I'm glad you said something about procurement also, because in the emergency contract, they can award it to whoever they want. But in Haynes Manor, Winfrey Disposal used to pick up. My uncle in Ozabe and Hopewell used to pick up. So as the city expanded, it put out a lot of black small trash collectors. And I've talked to the small black trash collectors, and we're going to be a part. We're going to make sure we're a part of this next emergency contract. Okay, Anicia, Judy.
So, 2 things. I understand that they appealed in a lower court, appealed the expansion, and lost that, and now are going to a general court. Is that what you said, Mr. Lane? Going to a higher court. Okay. Besides us calling and emailing Jonathan Hall, don't we need to also email the entire council to let them know? Okay, so you didn't have that on here. And then when we show up, you're saying, Mr. Hall, that that's not a public commenting? Right. And then we also need to be thinking about the upcoming mayoral elections, that the next mayor is really going to have to deal with this issue, and that needs to be one of the issues that's on the table. But then we as individuals also need to be making sure that we're doing our part.
So since it's not going to be a public comment meeting, what are you going to say to your peers the night of the council meeting? Because I know that the council, they can speak about different things. So exactly in that 5 minutes that you have, what are you going to say? And then when there is a time for public comment, Representative Dixie is here. I would like to know, what is Representative Dixie planning on doing? So I want to know what you're going to say to your peers and what Councilman Dixie is going to do in the meantime.
Well, really quickly, in terms of peers, having the conversation throughout this process, we did start to pick up quite a bit of support. And one of the things, if you guys remember, and I know you do, because it was simultaneous to dealing with what was happening in Jolton with the gas compression station and the onset and fight over Jackson Law, initially we didn't have a lot of support in council, and some folks had to be brought around, and that was last term. You've got this term a more aggressive group, especially when it comes to environmental issues, community issues, things like that. And so more than half that room has no issue with this and thinks we're absolutely, you know, in line and should be able to do this. But here's what we have to keep in mind. Regardless of whether there's verbal support from anyone, why you keep the pressure on is because everybody's going to think NIMBY. What we have to do is be very specific and aggressive so that, and prepare in this scenario. My message to my peers is 60 years is long enough. We've borne the burden for this city. Everyone knows our history and what's taking place out here. One of the things that upset some people, but when we had the ribbon cutting at Mr. Kirk's groundbreaking for that project for the Bordeaux Business Group, Dan and others were all there. And remember this confrontational moment because I spoke about this then, and we've had 3 consecutive mayors come into this community and tell us, wait. We stopped low-income services and the takeover of the Y under Mayor Berry. Then we had Mayor Briley come to the Bordeaux Library and tell us, wait 20 years, at least 20 to 30 years. Eventually, downtown's gonna make its way this way. You guys are gonna see some things. And then at that ribbon cutting, Mayor Cooper echoed that. Just wait. And my response to that was, in light of the conversation around this being the first mixed-use development and something that was done by this community itself, I think it's in order to remind you, Mayor Cooper, that guess what? We stopped waiting 60 years ago with Rosa in the back of the bus. Stop telling us to wait 20 years. Stop telling us to wait 30 years. Again, during this process for this court case, you never heard a statement come from the administration in support of us. I literally had to trick them in the solid waste meeting in order to get it on the record because we weren't supposed to talk about Jackson Law or anything else or the suit. So while I have confidence that they're going to defend their position, defending their position doesn't mean defending us. So in short, peers, it's going to be, you've been part of this process with us, you know the history. Here's the only thing that we're asking for, that we're not your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th option when we're solving this problem, and this problem needs to be solved right now.
Thank you. So one of the things that I've been working on is, like what they said earlier, there's 14 other counties that have this issue. This is pretty much the only black county that has black representation and in this particular area. So Representative Terry from Rutherford County and Representative, I think it's Gary Hicks. I forgot it's 2 Hicks, but it's Gary Hicks. They have these same issues, and we've been working on legislation on the state side to try to prevent this from happening. So the good thing about this is not just us. Now it's some Republicans that it impacts their areas. But on the other side is, in Tipton County, they want this particular business because it brings jobs to them. So we're like, let's push it to where people want it and get it out of people where we don't want it. But then that adds the cost and some of the other issues as far as logistical issues of getting it together. But on the state level, I think we're at a good point where maybe they won't be punitive if Davidson County passes something and then they do the overreach into ours, because they want to say, all right, we need to have government be localized, but apparently big government is what they really want. So I think we have an opportunity to work with the other side to make something happen on a statewide, because I have been talking with TDEC and making sure that they stay out of it right now. Just stay out of it. Let's see what we do on a local level. Don't make any approvals, don't do anything. Let's see what happens on the local level. Then we can address it on a state level, but I need you to stay out of it. And so far they have. So that's where I am.
Any more questions? All right, like I said, it's a holiday weekend. The ask was just simply get Councilman Hall to do a resolution. I would like for us to show up on the 19th. That's the second council meeting in July. And also, we want to try to have another meeting here in 2 weeks, the 16th, to really bring people together, really galvanize, get on the same message, so we'll be ready to go in to the council office chambers the 19th. So you'll see more signs. This was last minute, but now we got 2 weeks to build up to it. We'll have your information. We'll reach out to you, send some emails or texts, and any.
In 6 months, we're going to be without a place that we can dump our trash. Trash is still going to be picked up. Is there a plan in place or a plan being talked about or a plan being looked at that what's going to happen? What happens in January?
I'm glad you asked that. To negotiate that emergency contract with Waste Management, they hired a private lobbying firm and a private legal counsel, not inside Metro. So again, it's outside the Metro. They're negotiating a deal outside of Metro with outside counsel, and we're not a part of it. So I think, again, us showing up puts us at the forefront of finding out what's really going to be. We want to make it more transparent. And if they're not as transparent, we want to make sure the option for dumping is not Bordeaux. So again, they have outside counsel, and we'll be putting more pressure on them to be more transparent with us. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. We have the senatorial district candidates coming up. What's their position with this so that we can preemptively deal with this and trying to make sure that our candidates or the one that we may elect are not on the wrong side of this dump situation? Because we may have a candidate that's a lobbyist with Waste Management.
Well, Taurus can't tell you.
Because Murfreesboro is not going to take it, and we don't have anybody else in it. Is there a plan, or is anybody doing, Jonathan, is anybody doing anything to get us ready for January when we don't have a place?
So specifically, yes. Part of that conversation is because looking at that 30-year plan, what can and can't be used as an option, that was the reason I created that Solid Waste Commission, to try to move really hard and fast. They meet every month. It's a good thing for everybody to come and participate in that the second and fourth week of the month. That commission can come up with cutting edge, new, whatever suggestions on how to address those issues, and then make a referral to council and suggest that we do. And so by using Solid Waste Board, working with the state, doing the commission, it's going to make it easier for us to create some legislation and get it on the floor in a very short amount of time to address those things specifically. Like, for example, everybody knows and hears us talking about new football stadium, right? Well, if we have to work towards sustainability, if we're using tax dollars, if we know there has to be minority participation, all these different things that apply to that apply to this conversation too. We need to use those things to our advantage to advance the conversation. There's minority participation here, right? There's opportunity here for technology-based companies to participate. There are a host of things that will move this forward much faster, and we have to use those. And that's one reason, even like from a development standpoint, I don't know how many people know about gasification, right? Looking at that as an option where we're literally able to turn trash into energy. Some of that stuff has been bantered about but never really taken serious. And now you're in a situation where you don't have an option other than to be absolutely serious right now. Because over the next year, when we have to create a new contract for the city, and simultaneous, that contract has to impact construction and household waste, like Vince just mentioned, you know, you've got other communities that actually want our trash. So we've got to have the conversation about how to get it from here to there, because they've already gotten money and it's already creating jobs for them and things of that nature. And so when we talk about the response, Ms. Donegan mentioned from peers in council, that's one of the things we remind them of. Hey guys, we need you to side with us on this one, but we're not saying that as it's going to be side with us and it's going to end up being you. Work with us, because there are options where none of us have to bear the burden for everybody ever again.
All right.
Hey, thank you. Maybe I missed it. I'm sorry I was late because I had other obligations on this holiday weekend. Are you saying, or did I hear him say that in 6 months they're going to stop taking our trash? Is that what you're saying? You talking about Metro? Murfreesboro. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I was clear, because just hearing his question made it sound like they're going to stop taking our Metro trash in 6 months. Murfreesboro, the middle point, the midpoint, middle point. Okay, so they've already had a decision on their appeal? Correct. That's why it went back into court, because they found that, but they've not issued a ruling on that, so it's still in appeals. So that's false information. I'm just saying, I just want to stop that. I just want to push pause on that, because we can't say they're going to stop taking our trash in 6 months. We can't say that, because you have people that are listening that did not hear, like for me, for instance, that came in late. To hear that and not hear clarity, it makes it sound like Metro is going to stop taking our trash there in 6 months, so we got to find out what we're going to do with it. I just want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. But again, Middle Point has not made, the Chancery Court has not made a ruling on their appeal, so we can't say in 6 months they're going to stop. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that point, because that's what I'm going to walk away with. I just want to make sure we're clear that they've not made a decision on the appeals, so Metro can still take our waste and we're not forced to find a place in the next 6 months. And then I have another question if you clarify that.
Okay, well, again, I know that the councilman has worked with them. You want to speak to?
I mean, specifically, we're looking at timeline, right? If we know we've got to do something in December, if we wait until July to address it, that's a problem. You're not going to really address it. We're looking at the history of how the city handles emergency situations. It's no different than right after the last tornadoes, right? Simultaneous to COVID kicking in. Remember the issue we had with the C&D landfill and waste? And you had Ms. Oliver and others out there. I was the first one to introduce legislation about predatory practices and people trying to come in and buy out property. But the other thing that we had to address then was immediately, because they had gotten to know from the Solid Waste Board, Waste Management says, we're not going to take this debris from this tornado, and started using that to pressure the administration, right? So in the midst of that massive cleanup for those next few months, that was looming over our head. We know Chancery's not made a decision on that case, but we know where the Solid Waste Board is. We know the history with Chancery. It is a chance that they could say that you can keep going with that. But what we knew more so about that Middle Point site, other than our C&D, we knew long before it started to be a public issue that that site was at capacity and had things in it that should not be there. So they were going to have to close anyway in a short amount of time, or spend a lot of money and tap the Superfund at the state to try to clean up some of that stuff. So they were headed toward closing even before we were.
Thank you for that information, but I just want to be clear on the other point too. They have not reached capacity yet. Middle Point, neither have Southern Services reached capacity. So we still have time, but we don't have time, if you understand that. We don't need to wait to the last minute to plan, and that's what I'm taking from this. But I just want to make sure we're not putting end dates out there that we can't confirm. And then also, if I may, I saw 2 flyers, and both flyers had different information. You may have talked about this already, so tell me if you have. The information that you have on these 2 flyers, talking about the yearly amount, the daily amount, and things like that, is incorrect. So I just want to know how did you create the flyer? I just want to know how you calculated that using the scope of work, if you use the scope of work, and if you use the average base rate, because when you put those dollar amounts on there and one flyer has something different, it confuses the people. And I just want to be clear, and I'm not sure if anybody else was confused, but I was confused when I saw 2 different flyers. And when I saw the 2 different flyers, I also saw misquotes about some things. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. I don't want to stir the pot. I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I read the 62-page contract between Metro and Waste Management, and the amounts that you have on the flyers don't match. And I just want the people I challenge you to go back and read the contract for yourself, because it was a 60-month contract. And your flyer said that it ends in July. So I'm just telling you actual factuals, because I came for answers on this holiday weekend. And I just wanted to know if you read the contract, because it was a 60-month contract, and it does not expire in July, and the amounts you have are incorrect. And if people are going to be given these large dollar amounts, they need more details. And so if you can't provide that, then I just suggest that you not put that on your flyers moving forward.
And, you know, I can appreciate your concern, because I know, like Jerry Maynard, that you work closely with Waste Management. All right. So that's why we got to say it. But we'll to the capacity of. Well, but you know a lot about that. But Mr.
No, in terms of capacity, in 2010, they was predicting in 2017 they would be at capacity. Now, my basic feeling is when you say that Mill Point is not at capacity either, I would disagree with that. I think they are all at capacity, but they want to use, I think, pressure to get it extended for a certain number of years. And I frankly think, you know, the money they make on it is the issue also. But also, the other issue is, and this is the issue Metro facing, is that I would not say they're going to stop picking up waste, because I think that's, you have to look at the city and the mayor and what they're going to do. But Mill Point, in my opinion, their solid waste board have said they don't want an expansion. And I think with that, and I think their politician in Murfreesboro is behind Mill Point and is going to support them. So I think we are looking at within a short time period of trying to find out what are we going to do with our household waste.
Again, it's a weekend, a holiday weekend. I'm not about to go back and forth with paid lobbyists. And again, we hope to see you in 2 weeks here to build on momentum of asking and showing up at the council meeting on the 19th, supporting a resolution for us not to be considered for an expansion of a dump here. Thanks again for coming out. Who's Miss? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't.
I'll stand up. Good afternoon. I'm not sure what time it is. I just came here to listen, but my name is Charlene Aller. I wanted to introduce myself because this is an issue that I recognize has been an issue for over 30 years in this community, and that's a shame that this is the predominantly black part of town. Let's just be real. And environmental racism is real, and we got to do something about that. And we continue to keep being put on the back burner while I see all areas of other parts of the town getting investment and not getting dumped on. And so I just want to say, as the next candidate as state senator, I will oppose any efforts to dump on Bordeaux and look for money in the state budget to bring investment, not divestment, to the community. And so I just want to make that very clear. And I think misinformation is floating around right now. We got to be very transparent. Transparency is very key right now, not only in the elections, but with what is going on with this issue. And I just encourage people to do their research on what's happening. There's a lot of information on the Nashville.gov website, as well as on the internet about this solid waste management issue. And anyone can reach me after the meeting to talk further, but I just urge you, thank you for being here to be concerned citizens, and I'm here to listen, and I'll do that as state senator as well.
Again, I'm not trying to go back and forth because this is a holiday weekend, and if y'all want to continue on, we can have this conversation. Y'all do? Okay, yeah, okay.
In order to clarify the misinformation that he just said, I have never and will never personally take finances from Waste Management. Waste Management gave a donation to my Bordeaux Hills neighborhood during the May 2010 flood. Senator Harper was there, Representative Gilmore was there, several people were there when they made a financial donation to Bordeaux Hills, not Ruby Baker. So that has been misinformation that has been moving around, and I stand publicly now to tell you Ruby Baker has never taken money from Waste Management for personal or any other reason other than them giving a donation to my neighborhood during the May 2010 flood. That was 12 years ago. And that lie is still moving around. You can't kill a lie, but I can speak the truth. Jerry Maynard is an employee or a consultant for Waste Management. So don't get it twisted. I don't receive pay. He received pay from them. So let's get it clear before you start throwing shade. Verify your resources. Because you're spreading a lie. You repeated a lie in the open when you threw shade on me. We don't have to go back and forth. The truth speaks. I'm just clarifying what you put out there. Are we clear on that? The Maynard Group, as of the time, Jeff, sit down. Jeff. The Maynard Group, as of the time he announced his candidacy is a paid consultant for waste management and has been for some time. So read your information and know your history. So just like Miss Oliver, you got Ludi Wallace, you got Jerry Maynard, you got some others that are running. Check the facts, people. And it's all public information. So you can repeat that to Jerry Maynard if you so choose to. But just like some others would not support me because of a lie, know who you're supporting. The same individual that just tried to push a landfill years ago in East Nashville when Scott Davis was the council person. And this, people, this is who you need to check history on. So for my support, I'm not supporting anybody using someone else's word that's bringing deleterious development to our district. So know your facts, and we're gonna keep the race that we're running clean. So if that's something that you picked up over the years, Ruby Baker has never taken anything from Waste Management other than what they gave to my neighborhood, along with Smyrna Ready Mix, along with Home Depot, along with Lowe's, along with several organizations. So don't ever say that in my presence without giving me an opportunity to clear my name.
Points of information. If anybody here lives near Royal Hills, we put in the application for a traffic calming. We've been approved for Phipps Drive for traffic calming. So if you live in Royal Hills, please see me so I can get your contact information, because they're going to want to do a community meeting prior to implementing that. Oh, no, it got approved already. Yeah. I'm talking about something that already went through.
But that's already went through.
Mm-hmm.
The participatory budget is separate from that.
Right.
It still gets
Yes.
traffic calming.
Yes.
The deadline is August 1st.
Yes.
Submit the idea and
Yes.
support.
Yes. But for the Phipps Drive, it's been approved. so please be on the lookout for that. And then also, I don't know if the email was given because there's been a lot of talking. councilmembers@nashville.gov is the email you need to know, not just Jonathan Halls. Because if you can't show up at the meeting, you can flood their emails. And then also, everybody, please be on one page to make demands of whoever is running for at-large and mayor. Make demands, because that's one thing I see is we don't have one agenda that we demand of whoever's asking for our vote. So please walk away with that.
Thank you.
And she made it very clear, and I want to make sure you hear it from me. I am not saying, whatever I said, I want to make sure that I don't believe she personally took money from Waste Management. I know that they had given them some money from Waste Management, and when I heard the questions that were not necessarily focused on getting the dump closed, I thought I was hearing some of the same things I heard from somebody else who's running for state senator, who I know was a paid lobbyist, okay? So I just want to make that clear, because again, if you want to say something loud, you make sure the rebuttal is loud as well, okay? So I think we're ending this meeting now. I think we got one more. Okay.
Just in request, so that no dirt will be thrown anymore on my mother's name, can we please get a public apology from you for doing that? Because to me, that was a childish move for you to say what you said, and I have a child sitting right here. So, I mean, if you want to continue to allow things to move forward from the adults that deal with my mother, who is a whole adult, can you please start this thing clear by apologizing publicly to my mother?
Sweet. I want to make sure you hear it from me. I thought I apologized to her. And I want to apologize to you for being, and she's a wonderful woman, She brought me to Bordeaux to help with the Bordeaux. She's been a warrior for this community, okay? And she didn't receive any money, along with other companies, gave her neighborhood association money, okay? She's a soldier for this community, okay?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out, and I appreciate you all being civil and somewhat cordial today, but I think that this dialogue is good, and I hope that we can continue to work together as a community to support the efforts that will make this a better place for all of us to live. Thank you all. Y'all have a good day.